When I was a kid growing up in Scotland, South Dakota, my best friend was my Cocker Spaniel, Sandy. He was kind of an interesting little dog. He very loyal, obedient to my dad, my mom, and me, uh, and to an extent, and very much a one family dog. And there are stories uh, when I was really little, and my brothers were hauling me around in the wagon, and they managed to dump me out of the wagon someplace, and they were fussing, trying to get me in, and struggling and everything. And some lady came up to help or try to help, and Sandy just about took her arm off, and that's kind of how he was. And of course, somebody called my mom and said that those boys were hauling that poor little crippled kid around and stuff like that, but we didn't think anything of that. And Sandy would do things like, their leash laws were pretty lax back then, except for during certain parts of the garden season. And so he would kind of follow us wherever we went and things like that. And uh, he we'd go uptown, and my mom would often have me in the wagon, and my brothers would be with, and we'd go uptown and go to the drugstore or something like that, and she'd tell him to wait outside, and he would, except for he had this habit of not letting anybody in or out of the store while my mom was in there. He was very protective. At that point, that store was my mom's, and other people were supposed to not be there or something like that. He hated grocery boys with an unbelievable passion. They used to tease him what grocery boys, at the time, the delivery boys, and they had these sedan delivery cars, were basically two-door station wagons without a bunch of windows in the back, and they would deliver groceries. And apparently, when he was younger and stuff, when they had first did it, they would flutter They always wore these butcher aprons, and they would flutter them at him and stuff like that, and he hated that. And he just hated grocery boys. And whenever they got a new grocery car or anything like that, he always knew, and he would always chase them pretty much no matter what. Even my dad yelling at him or anything could not stop Sandy from chasing after a grocery car when they went by. And this one time when we lived up by the highway, and we were outside and stuff, and a grocery car came by and was at the stop sign right by the highway, and they had left the window open. They flip up gate like they had, back, the window flipped up, the gate flipped down, and the window was open, probably because it was a hot day and they probably didn't have air conditioning or anything like that. And stops the car. Sandy jumped in the back, and here comes a grocery boy, comes running out of there, out of the car. Sandy right after him and up to the house. And he managed to get in the house, and Sandy's out there parking and going nuts. And so my mom had to grab Sandy and hold him while he got back in his car and was able to leave. And Sandy there was a lot of things about Sandy. There times when my brothers would, because they had bikes and stuff, and of course I didn't, and they would run off, and I'd be sitting there, by myself and not very happy about it. And I'd be calling for Sandy, and wouldn't be very long, and there he is. He'd come back, and we'd sit there, and he'd, be my friend. And one of the things I used to do with Sandy is every once in a while my mom would give me a piece of hard candy that you sucked on, and I would share it with Sandy. I would suck on it for a while, and then I'd give it to him, and he'd suck on it, and then I'd reach in and pull it out and put it back in my mouth and suck on it again. And we'd go back and forth like that. Now, I was probably, other than my dad, the only person that could get away with taking food out of Sandy's mouth like that and come back with anything more than a bloody stump. But we did that more than once. Another time, in school, in grade school in Scotland, they were talking about sled dogs up in Alaska and things like that. And I was determined that Sandy could be pull the wagon for me. So when I went home, and there was some rope around, and I made him a harness, Not very good. This would have been when I was in second or third grade. I made the harness and had him hooked up to the wagon, and it really did not go the way it was supposed to. Somehow he did not understand what the term mush meant, and whenever I would say his name, I'd say, "Mush, Sandy." Well, as soon as I said his name, then he would turn around and come back to the wagon. I'm like, "No, Sandy, you're supposed to pull the wagon." And this went on for a while until there came that notorious grocery boy. One of them came driving by, and Sandy took off, and I went for a wild ride. Luckily, I wasn't very good at harness making, and the rope came apart, and probably only pulled me about maybe 10, 20 feet before he managed to get away and go chasing after the car. Probably would not have been the best thing to be flying down the highway behind Sandy in a wagon.